Welcome to Transformation with Martine. Martine Emmons is a transformational life coach who broke free from childhood abuse, sexual trauma, and overcame cancer to become a powerful force of healing and hope for others. Martine describes traumatic events as fierce emotional tsunamis. They can leave impending doom and destructive tidal waves of emotions that hit you when you least expect it. Martine helps her clients dive into the depths of their trauma and pain as she stands fiercely advocating for them to shine a light on those experiences and find the lesson in the pain. She serves as a beacon of hope that guides you to see the strength, lessons, and purpose that can be born from the pain. You can feel alive with purpose again when you awaken your dormant strength, step into your power with a sense of peace, and discover a new wave of hope with the right tools and support. Martine and her guests are here shining their lights today through empowering stories of hardship and transformation to inspire you to find hope and to see that there is a beautiful blue ocean of serenity, happiness, and fulfillment in your future. Transformation with Martine starts now.
Welcome everyone to Transformation with Martine, where we overcome everything and compromise nothing. I'm so excited to be back. For those of you who don't know, my show is every Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. And also for those of you who don't know, my show is about hope. Myself, my guests, everybody who's invited onto my show has a powerful story about hope, transformation, survival. And my guest today, I'm so excited. My guest is Annabel Quintero, and she is a survivor of 9/11. And to me, it's so absolutely unbelievable that it's 20 years tomorrow that this happened. And God, it's emotional. I remember actually, the day it happened, my daughter was 2, and it's her birthday. So it's just wow. It's such a beautiful day for me. At the same time, a tragedy that our nation survived. So without further ado, Annabel, please introduce yourself and tell us about you.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. It's
Absolutely.
such an honor. Well, I'm a DEI strategist, a diversity, equity, and inclusion strategist, and a certified wellness coach.
Mm-hmm.
And throughout my career, I have always been in front of people and worked with people and shared stories of overcoming, moving from Seattle to New York and just overcoming self-doubt.
Mm-hmm.
There's always been one story that I could never share, and that's that I'm a September 11th survivor.
Oh, man.
Step, step, jump, step, step, jump.
Oh.
Was born this beautiful Tuesday morning.
Mm-hmm.
I lived in New York. I was running late that morning, and I jumped on the subway and got to the World Trade Center. I got up the elevator to the 46th floor and was just frantic because I had to hurry up and print everything because I was running late.
Right.
And I was mortified of that. So I get into the office and I see my boss's sweater on the chair and I'm like, oh no. So I'm like hurrying and printing, turning on all the computers. And I finally sit down and I'm reading Financial Times. And then out of nowhere, something just falls on my tower. And I'm like, what was that? And I run to the window and I look outside and it's sunny, it's peaceful. And I was like, well, a building must have fallen on top. But I realized all the buildings were shorter than Tower One. And then I was like, well, what was that? And then the rumbling began. And I just ran, got my sweater, my purse, and I run to the doorway and it stops. 1,368 feet of steel settles. And this man and I are staring at each other, and I see the fear in his eyes. And the rumbling began again. And he ran back into this office, and the door just slammed like thunder on me. And here I was by myself. There wasn't an announcement, there wasn't a fire alarm. And I was like, ay, Dios mío, ¿qué hago? Like, dear God, what do I do?
Mm.
And I look into the office and it turned muted gray. And that was my answer. And so I knew that that was no place for the living.
Yeah.
So I get my answer. And now I'm almost feeling paralyzed by fear because of the rumbling and the shaking.
Mhm.
And so I tell myself, Annabelle, just try to leave the building, even if you die trying. And I had to face the notion of death in my mind just to take a step because I was so afraid of the way the floors were moving. So I just ran. And in that hallway, it was like I was just like this rag doll in this fun house. And I
Mm.
was so afraid everything was going to fall on me.
Yeah.
And I get to the stairwell, and with going to school in Bellevue and in Seattle, they would always train us like, touch the doorknob, don't open the doorknob if it's hot. But I
Right,
was
right.
touching the doorknob and I could not tell if it was hot or cold. And I was like, okay, calm down, Annabelle. I didn't know where the other stairwells were and I didn't want to run and try to find something. I was like, just calm down. So I was like, just breathe. And I breathed in and I breathed out. And then I listened to my synapses like, okay, it's cold. And I could finally open the door and there was no one there. I was still by myself. There was still no fire alarm. And then this invisible, like corrosive, some stench was now choking me.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, oh no, something's burning. And I didn't, I had been in fires before, but I was like, this wasn't wood. Wood wasn't burning.
Mhm.
And with all my might, and I just like, okay, I got to get out of here. So I put my hand on the railing and I stepped with my left and I stepped with my right and I jumped on the landing and I step, jumped and I
Yeah.
step, jumped down that stairwell. And I was met with seeing hysterical people. I saw this poor young lady burned, and even seeing our beloved firefighters rise to their, going up their stairway to heaven. And the book goes through more of the day of how I was able to get through this traumatic day and heal, really so that others could know, I know how it is to face a life altering moment, and you can still overcome and remake yourself no matter what.
Right. Oh my gosh. I get just chills from that. And I imagine like, in our world of transformation, you and I being at least in one community together, sometimes we have like mantras to kind of get us through. And I imagine the step jump was for you. Like you have to like keep saying that to yourself just to kind of keep yourself on an even keel and to keep yourself from just freaking out, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that it it was more than just three words. I mean, it embodied so much of even my healing process of what I needed to do. Like, first step, acknowledge that I was traumatized. That was the biggest part. I didn't even know what I was going through. The second step was me practicing self-awareness. It's like, okay, why am I getting triggered? Understanding my human behavior. And
Mhm.
then the jump was taking new action. And so
Yeah.
many times in our life, it's like we want to heal, but we're doing the same things and we don't see any changes. We can't break through. And so, yes, this was my mantra. This was how I got out of the tower, but also how I healed as well.
Yeah. Wow. I know I use the just in my own healing because I have had quite a journey myself, and a lot of times what I find myself, at least lately, is I am safe in God, my mind, my heart, my body, my soul. And sometimes when I get really worked up, that's what I say, and I just say it over and over again. But I've got like just like chills, my whole being here. We're going to take a break in a moment, but would you share your book, the name of the book, and yeah,
Absolutely.
let's start there.
Yeah. Yeah. My book is called Step, Jump,
Mhm.
Transforming Trauma to Triumph from the 46th Floor.
Right. And it
Yes.
is available now, right? I've read about
Yes,
it.
it's
Okay.
on
Good.
Amazon, any independent bookstore. Yes, and even on my site, Step Step Jump, you can listen to one of the chapters.
Yeah. And I can tell all of you, my wonderful guests here, that it's very good. And she's got what I would like to go into next, Annabelle, if you're good with it, is just even how you got started and taking that journey to get yourself to New York, because I know you wavered on it and you had a scholarship and you had all this stuff that you held back a bit. So I'd love to go in with that, into that when we come back. So thank you, everyone, and we will be back in a few. Everyone to Transformation with Martine, where we overcome everything and compromise nothing. My guest today is Annabel Quintero, and we have been talking about her story, 9/11 story, and being on the 46th floor when it happened. Annabel, I forgot before we broke for a break, but weren't you thinking about taking the day off that day?
Yes,
Like your bed felt so good, and gosh,
yes,
did you reflect on that as well? Like, oh my gosh.
absolutely. Because,
Mhm.
well, Monday nights are the best nights to go out in New York, and so I did, and
Yeah.
was really tired, and I don't like to go. It was like I was mortified to even think of how it feels to walk in late. So
Right.
and I was thinking of staying in bed. And also, there was all these crows in my tree. I woke up to all this cawing.
Yeah.
And so, yes, I went out and I remembered I had pulled the crow as one of my animal totems. And
Uh-huh.
so
Uh-huh.
I was like, what is it? I couldn't remember the meaning in the morning. I was like, okay, it's okay. I'm going to just get dressed and go to work. And so
Yeah.
yeah, so all of that, um, so many symbolism on that day as well.
Right. No doubt
Mhm.
about it. So you found yourself in New York, but you started, I can't remember the town in
Seattle,
Washington.
Seattle.
Oh, it was Seattle? Oh, okay. It seemed like it was like another little, maybe, no, okay. I'm thinking of something else, maybe another town that's by Seattle. But um, so you started out there and you had a scholarship to school, and your dad was a very practical man, wanted you to have the right education. But your passion was dance and modeling. And how did you find your way and the strength and the ability to shine your light, your true light, and not succumbing to what everybody else wanted you? How did you find that energy to move and get?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, I'm Latina, and African, Native, and European. The whole multiracial mix. Speaking
Yeah.
Spanish. My parents are from Ecuador, and so much of growing up was always about "qué van a pensar la gente?" Like, what are people going to think?
Wow.
And so, being the perfect daughter
Mhm.
was ingrained in me. And it got to a point where here I was in college, about to graduate. And I didn't choose dance. I was like, okay, I'm going to do political science. I'm going to finish my bachelor's in 4 years. And I'm there seeing this lady. I took dance because I had a bunch of electives my senior year,
Yeah.
and she's dancing and I'm watching her flow, and then I'm imagining myself doing those moves. And then I remember thinking, "Ah, I didn't choose that. I didn't choose to dance because I was told it wouldn't make money."
Right.
And then I'm a couple credits away from graduating college, and I'm like, it was the first time I tasted regret.
Right.
Wow, I'm so young, and all I had to do was choose that, but I didn't. And
Right.
now I'm a couple credits away. So I graduated, and I've got this job, and I had my own office, and I was a board member. I was mentoring youth. I even produced with a couple other B girls this all hip hop female
Yeah.
event in Seattle. It was the first of its kind, Invasion of the B girls. And
Love it.
I was still just unfulfilled.
Mhm.
And I got invited to this wedding. A dear family friend was getting married, so we were so excited. And just I share it in my book. It was this moment where it was dancing, having a good time, but the partner at the time who I was dating didn't come.
Mm-hmm.
And, had too much to drink like we often do. And so I called him and I was like, I can't believe you're not here. Just a, video game. And it wasn't really him. It was just that everything in my life I had filled up all of my life with all the right things to do. And I was so busy, but I wasn't doing the modeling. I wasn't dancing the way I had wanted to. I had wanted to move to New York so bad. And finally, my sister comes and she's like, everyone can hear you from the reception. Like, what's wrong? And I was like, oh, I was crying and upset. So she was like, let's go. So we got in the car and my mom got in last and she was like, I go, no puedo creer lo que pensas, cómo te portaste. Like, I can't believe how you were behaving yourself. And then she said, ¿qué van a pensar la gente? And I was like, I don't care. I lost it.
Yeah.
I broke and shattered the windshield of my sister's Honda Civic. And it was that moment that I realized I am done.
Right.
And I put that in the book because it was an unhealthy way of making a decision. But we are so used to, sometimes we tend to just fill our life up with all the things we should do. And then our dreams are in the back burner. And that was that pivotal moment where I realized I need to live my life and pursue my dreams. And I'm moving to New York. And that was it. That was that moment. I was like, done. Yeah.
There are times, and I mean, it was a little different for you, but it's like, sometimes there's just like, maybe a few bricks will fall on your head, but then the universe or God says, all right, she's still not listening. Let's dump a bit more. And whatever it takes, even just your boyfriend deciding to play video games instead of being there with you. Well, that was your dump of bricks or something like that.
That was the last straw. Yeah. And that came back to me because that was really, it wasn't him. It was that I was putting all these other all these things to fill up my life, have expectation. And the moment that the expectation wasn't fulfilled, then I lost it. Why? Because I wasn't fulfilled, because I wasn't living my dream. And I had to break out of that conflict of being the perfect daughter, having it kind of conflict with my Christian upbringing of doing something vain, right? And I was like so conflicted, but finally I was like, this is what I want to do. And it's just moving through me and calling me. So I got to do this. Regret was too heavy.
Well, like they say, that people, it at the end of their lives, they're not reflecting on anything but what they didn't do.
Yeah.
They didn't spend time with the things that they didn't conquer. There are so many things, like we were talking about before the beginning of the show, is like, we've got to put ourselves out there. No matter how scary it is, we got to just jump in, because life's going to keep going and we're going to keep getting older and all that. We got to keep going.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's why I put that in my memoir, because it was one of the first jumps. It was my new action to actually save my money, pack up my bags, and move to New York City.
Yeah. So what happened? Like when you did it, so what happened? Did you like set up an apartment and get a job with what you're trained in, or what did you do next?
Yeah. Well, my brother lived in the West Village. So I was able to stay with him, get a job. No, I got any type of job. I was working in production and advertising and just doing all types of work to get an apartment, because it was hard to get yourself situated in New York City. And I did that and worked at Deutsche Bank for a little bit temporarily. And then I landed this great job at this boutique hedge fund in the One World Trade Center.
Wow. That felt amazing.
Oh my goodness. Are you kidding me? It's like wow, like here I am modeling, dancing,
Yep.
and then also learning about money and working on Wall Street. I mean, it's such a huge opportunity. And every single day I'd go there and everyone just felt so proud and so good. And we were just, there was something about that community, right? There was a mall down there as well, and they'd have great events in the courtyard. It was just a special time. And even going out to the windows of the world, that restaurant. And I even put a scene in where everyone was hustling, like doing disco. It was like a disco night, and everyone was like twirling and just, just, it was a beautiful, beautiful time.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I bet it felt good to just like, okay, I'm doing what I want now, and I'm living my life the way I want to live. So I mentioned it a little in the beginning, and then we also talked about it. It's like, but it's like, to quote you, is I don't have to dim my light to make others comfortable or make myself small to fit in. And that sounds like you found that place where you didn't have to. You could just be you.
Absolutely. Especially, I think that's one of the things that I loved about New York is
Mm.
that there's so many, everyone's living out their dreams. And so you could go as big as you needed to, and you're all about shining there because if you don't shine, you don't get acknowledged. There's too many people. And I was really living, I felt like I had the destiny in my hands. It was like, wow, I was 25, modeling, dancing with hip hop's finest. I mean, New York City Breakers and Rock Steady Crew. I mean, they did President Reagan's inauguration twice in the 80s. I remember watching them as a little girl on TV.
Mhm.
And then to perform with them, and then them to be my friends and have this other community. It was just an amazing time. And that's why I shared all that, because it's like, wow, then you have a life altering event, something completely
Right.
out of your control,
Mhm.
and just knocks you out. And then you have to just remake yourself again.
Right. Gosh, no doubt about it. Um, so when you were in that office and you decided to go to work that day, running a little late, and that anxiety, I always I know how that feels too, because I've always been that type where I gotta be on time. I have to show up. I was raised that way. Um, so you were talking about being in the building, and there's no place for the living. It was time to leave. Was there like a little voice in your head, or did you just get a sense? Like what happened then?
It was two things that I had just asked God, what should I do?
Hmm.
And then where I was, it was sunny, and then it was all gray. So that I was like, that's my answer. Like that's the sign
Yeah.
that this is no place for the living.
Mm.
And then because of the way the building was moving, I could feel I was starting to get paralyzed with fear.
Mhm.
And then I had to face death and tell myself, Annabelle, you have to try to leave this building even if you die trying.
Yeah.
And I wrote about those two parts because so many times we do ask God and we get a sign, but do we listen?
Right.
Because the fear sets in, because then the next step is to follow through on the answer, and that mortifies us, and then we don't, right?
Right.
And I do want to say that as I share the story, I know that I'm sharing stories of other people's loved ones who didn't make it. And I'm just sharing it because I want other people to find ways to navigate their life and through crisis. But in no way am I saying anything about those who have fallen.
Right.
So I do want to share that as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Um, do you think, had you known when you're like going down those steps, step, jump, that if you would have known what had happened, would that have probably have been scarier, huh? Like it was almost like you were blessed that you didn't exactly know until you were quite a bit further down. of what
Absolutely.
actually did happen?
Yes. No, we
Cool.
didn't know because at that time we only had cell phones and they weren't working, or you had two-way pagers and the texting was working, but not everyone had two devices. So no, we
Right.
did not know. And I think I felt it because I felt something fall in the tower, the earthquake, the way that the building was moving, and then smelling that and then choking on that, whatever was burning. That those three things made me know, like, okay, this isn't good. I don't know what's happening, but these are too many things that should not be happening at work. And so I was like, I want to get on solid ground.
Right, absolutely. Okay, so we are going to take a break again. And I would love to come back and talk about just the stairwell and going down and the firefighter you saw and just more of the actual experience.
Mhm.
But will you tell everybody about your book again? And you're also a health and wellness coach. So let's hear all
Yeah.
about it.
Yay, thank you. Yes,
Mhm.
my book is Step Step Jump: Transforming Trauma to Triumph from the 46th Floor. And I'm a certified wellness coach. I help people heal, center their wellness so they can break limiting patterns and really prioritize their dreams. Yes.
Yeah, so no regret, huh?
No.
No regret.
No.
You can show them how not to have regret. You can show
Yeah,
them.
yeah, and really working through our emotional wellness. Like that's a big
Mhm.
part of the work that I help people do because we can't just compartmentalize. We need to actually lean in to the grief, to the sadness and the rage,
Yeah.
and work through it to really understand ourselves, like, why is this coming up, what's the memory and the story in my mind that's playing, that's triggering all these emotions, and then how is my body feeling, because at some point we'll just react. And so I help clients learn to share their story, to create that space so that they can choose to respond. And that is where we get the opportunity to choose something else and actually jump and take that new action so that we get a different result.
Yeah, that's beautiful because I think emotional wellness is just, I mean, I think we're getting better as a whole, but we still have to, there needs to be more expanded on that. We've got to take care of ourselves, every part of ourselves, you know, so.
And absolutely, and we tend to, sometimes society tends to tell us or has told us, don't be emotional, or and it's like, but we're
Right.
emotional beings, so how are we have to redefine what is the norm now, because we've had to cut off a part of our humanity to
Yes.
be viewed as professional,
Right.
and that is not healthy. I hope that we can all be part of that discussion to redefine it and redefine cultural wellness.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We are human after all,
Hmm.
you know? Yeah. Yeah.
And and us taking the wellness piece. Yes, I help people personally and
Mhm.
also collectively, because even as leaders, if
Mhm.
you're well, think about how you show up for your team and what you're able to do. But if you're going through all this emotional labor and not able to show up the way you need to for your team, that's
Mhm.
impacting your team and the whole culture. So, especially when I do diversity trainings, I talk about that. It's like we all have emotional labor as we think about the history and we're trying to make things more diverse. We still have to
Right.
go back to history and understand how we got here. And then how are we taking care of the wellness of those that are othered in the process?
Absolutely.
Because
For
it's
sure.
not just to be diverse, but it's also to think of our own wellness and the wellness of others. And so that's a journey too that I feel so passionate about. And I love doing workshops for people around redefining cultural wellness.
Absolutely. I
Mm.
love that. I love that. And we do have to take a break, but I just wanted to say too, it's like you have daughters, I have daughters, and I have a son as well. the more well we are, the more that we're going to exude and help them with, right?
Mhm. Absolutely.
So important. So
Yeah. Especially as a parent, that's crucial.
yes, absolutely. Okay, so we're going to take a break, everyone, and we'll be back in just a few. Thank you so much for being here. Welcome back, everyone, to Transformation with Martine, where we overcome everything and compromise nothing. Today, my guest is Annabel Quintero, and we are talking about 9/11 and her story. And we left off talking about emotional wellness. And when you were going down the stairs, Annabel, how were you feeling? Like I know there was a incident on the 27th floor, and then you started coming into contact with other people. What was going on then in your heart, and just what was going on overall?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I was just trying to get out of the tower.
Mhm, mhm,
And information was here and there.
mhm,
Um, I think for me, I was very surprised that we would squeeze ourselves into a subway like a bunch of sardines every morning and night. And it wasn't that same, there wasn't that urgency. So
mhm,
people were on the right side of the stairwell, and then the left side was free, and firefighters were coming up. And
mhm.
I didn't understand why they were coming up. I mean, I was like, why are they coming? You know, how are they going to help? And this was already after I had known that a passenger plane had hit. So yes, so that was afterwards. And I'd love to share or read a little excerpt from my book
Oh,
about
yes,
that
yes.
moment when I do get face to face with our beloved firefighters.
Yeah.
Um, the Their hats had a number 9 emblazoned on them, and they all looked strong, tall, and stoic. One of them even looked beautiful. He
Mhm.
had light skin and dark hair, with eyes the color of a clear sky. The line he was walking in stopped inches from me, and we regarded each other. When I looked at him, I found the answer to my question. I expected to see fear in his eyes, or bravery, or even anger, but what I saw instead was acceptance.
Mm. Wow.
And I put this in here because, our firefighters and first responders really gave me a second chance.
Mhm.
And it's hard to say thank you because it just doesn't seem like enough.
Right.
And afterwards, I was really struggling and have struggled with survivor's guilt because of it,
Mm.
because it just feels like words are not enough. You know, all the people that passed that day. And I was in this vicious cycle of how am I making my life? I survive. How am I making my life count? And everything didn't seem worthy of all those who had passed. And it wasn't until later that I was able to not equate them, but it took me so much turmoil. I was like shocked, and I was crying and yelling in the middle of the night. I didn't even know that until my nephew came and visited me. And so I know how it is to have this inconsolable grief and to then get sad. You're grateful that you're alive, and then you get sad because other people aren't. And then you get depressed, like, oh, I'm not doing what I need to do. And it's just this terrible cycle. So one of the things that I had to do was calm my nerves. And I
Mhm.
had to focus on calming my nerves like every day, and doing that through my senses, through aromatherapy, through movement, through journaling, meditating, like all these different ways that I had to do that just to ground myself for the moment, for the day,
Mhm.
just to get through the day.
Oh, I imagine. I can't imagine actually. Um, trauma of this level, I'm sure you had to call in some, I mean, even more than meditation. Like what did you do? Did you seek help? What did you do to come back to
Abs-
you?
Absolutely. Yes, I definitely sought help and um, was seeing a mental therapist. And I didn't know that this was an actual brain injury. Like acute trauma is that. I didn't know that because I'm fine. I wasn't burned. My body's fine, but I was hurt here and hurt emotionally.
Mhm.
And that really set me on a path because I would pray, I'd see the therapist, but I was still not doing well. So that's when I had decided to go back and be with my family and go back to Seattle to the trees and mountains. And
Mhm.
there I had planned I went and did a 10-day meditation, Vipassana. And then I also did a sweat lodge. And that changed my whole perspective because even at the end of when I had finally gotten to the cab and I finally on September 11th got uptown,
Mhm.
I went into the church and I just was standing there and praying to God and crying and just profound gratitude. I just couldn't believe I had made it. And then out of nowhere, I had felt my blood flow, like the
Mhm.
current. Kind of like imagine putting your hand in a river and feeling that. And I felt that in my wrist.
Oh, wow.
I had no idea that was possible.
Mhm.
And that moment gave me this awakening of wow, like even in a day of trauma, so much is revealed to me. So
Mhm.
much of my creation or how we are created is revealed to me. And so the notion of God wasn't just out there, but also this omniscient force, this consciousness. I was like, it's within us.
Mhm.
It's within us. It's not out there. It's not trying to reach something out there and penetrate that. No, it's within us, but to stop from the mundane, from the rhythm of life. And really, for me, it took that day I had never experienced that. And so it was like this whole other awakening for me.
Mm. Wow. It seems like people who have had experiences like you, it opens up the whole world to God or who God is. It's like, re- like I'm not really a religious person, or I was raised Catholic, but I don't follow it. God is everywhere. He's, yeah. These kind of even like near death experiences, it always comes back with a whole different level of what is really available to us to tap into.
Mm, yeah.
Mm.
And that was something too that I had done is because I grew up Christian,
Mhm.
Protestant, Seventh day Adventist. And yeah, I had meditated 20, 30 minutes, but not 10 days. I mean,
Right.
I stepped
Right.
into my cultural blind spot.
Mhm.
That's known as Buddhism or Eastern, right? And so I was like, well, I need help. So I need to do something new and I need to understand myself more. And that's really why I did it. And then I did it again by going to a sweat lodge in Anipi.
Mhm.
Even though I'm Latina, we don't really, our African and indigenous culture has really been wiped out from our, everyday culture besides music and stuff like that. And so I was like, I had never experienced a sweat lodge. And I had stepped into another cultural blind spot because I needed help. And
Mhm.
so much of our healing is usually lies in something that in a culture that we don't know much of, or in a practice, or doing something completely new that can be that doorway of possibility. And that's what it was for me, because the 10-day sit, I experienced my light. I was like, I can feel this isn't just a science book. I mean, I read, okay, atoms are made of energy and cells, but to experience it,
Yeah.
it just opened me up. I was like, I'm energy, you're energy. we're all one. We're made of the same thing. And there was this like unification of humanity that I experienced. And then going to the sweat lodge, you know, it's a sacred ceremony and it's willow trees that are built like an igloo, and you're in there and it's like a cave. You're like in Mother Earth's womb, and these lava rocks are brought in, and my dear friend Carolyn, who's East Band Cherokee, she pours water on the rocks and that's what makes it steam.
Yeah.
And I didn't know Mother Earth could take my trauma and my dense energy and transmute it. I mean, if she would have told me that beforehand, I was like, I don't know. Okay, maybe. But she didn't really say anything. She was like, it's a spiritual sacred ceremony. I was like, okay, I really want to, I need help. And yes, I want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And it allowed me to experience oneness with Mother Earth.
Right.
No separation from nature. And that is what transformed my relationship with God, because I was like, wow, growing up Christian, people say, oh, don't have idolatry. You know, people would worship the moon and worship this. It's like, no, they're honoring the sacredness that's imbued in the moon and imbued in Mother Nature.
Yeah.
It's not just making that a God. And so understanding that and having that whole definition of God be expanded, it just transformed everything for me. And that's why I love, you know, I love spirituality and esoteric conversations, and that's just, I enjoy that. I just, and I take that and it informs my wellness, right? Like, how can we listen to the sacred? How can we reclaim prayer? How can we ground our nervous system through our five senses, through smudging, through listening to the natural world? Like, when there's an animal that comes before you, there's a message there for you.
Yes.
Right? And it's like, I didn't know any of this. So yeah, I help people when they go on this wellness journey with me. I'm like, there's a lot of ways to listen to the sacred.
Yeah.
Being in silence is one way as well, right? We have to become available. And
Absolutely.
you can't do this work without being available. People say, how do you know that the voice in your mind is yours, or how do you make your intuition stronger? Well, it's also listening, being in silence, being able to be the student. We always want to lead, but we need to be the student and walk the question and live out the question.
Right. So we are going to take a quick break, just a quick one, guys. And when we come back, we're going to talk more about how Annabel can help you in your journey. And if you're at a place that, well, this sounds good to you, you need to tap into a part of you, a higher part of you. We'll talk more about that when we get back. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone, to Transformation with Martine, where we overcome everything and compromise nothing. My guest today has been Annabel Quintero, and we just decided we could talk all day, but we know we can't because other people want their shows as well. But Annabel is going to share her greatest breakthrough and how she could help you, others out there that have gone through a traumatic experience. And it may not be as traumatic as this, but trauma comes on all different levels. One of my girlfriends says her son's going off to college was trauma to her. So it really depends on you and how you view it. But what would you tell someone, Annabel, who comes to you today, like, you know, I'm struggling, I need help?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we all have our September 11th. It could be, especially right now, a lot of people have been dealing with death, the loss of a loved one, divorce, a diagnosis. And one of the things that was a huge breakthrough for me was I had so much guilt that would morph into inconsolable grief. and for all those that had passed and didn't make it out. And I decided that even though my silence, I had defined it as I'm having reverence for them,
Mhm.
I decided that to really honor them, that I would live my best life,
Mhm.
that I would take all this pain and all these, all these different ways that I've experienced God and spirituality, and also just love for humankind and compassion, and take that and live my best life and serve others with that wisdom.
Yes.
Yeah, it just is. It's freed me up from feeling trapped by my story, and actually being able to break the silence in
Mm.
hopes that others do the same thing, because there's so much healing when we share.
Absolutely.
And that's a big part of the journey I take people on, is sharing through journaling, sharing through group discussion, or even one-on-one, because there's so many ways that we evolve our healing. And I center it around our senses. I center it around, like, okay, what are we looking at? What are we hearing? Um, what are we smelling and
Mhm.
touching ourselves? Like, I have body oils, that just tending to ourself,
Mhm.
so that we can ground our nervous system, and then be truly present. Because when we're present, then we're not in the past,
Mhm.
in a painful memory, and we're not looking forward. We're not missing this moment by having an expectation of the future, or even misusing our imagination and worrying, which
Mhm.
is what a lot of people are doing right now, right? Let's not misuse our imagination. How do you do that? Get present.
Yes.
The more present you are, the less you are doing that. And yeah, I really guide people on that journey for their transformation, because if each person centers their wellness and understands their patterns, and then works towards breaking them, you prioritize your dreams. Now you can step forward in your dreams and your purpose. And really, our fulfillment is the root of most of our dis-ease.
Oh gosh, amen to that one. Boy, I understand that. Mhm.
So if we are fulfilled, there's no more dis-ease of our spirit. There's no more disease. You can't get sick because you're not going to numb yourself with drugs. You
Mhm.
you won't get sick because you're not eating that unhealthy meal that is
Right.
comforting you and giving you love that you're
Mhm.
not getting from somewhere else. I mean, it ties into all these other pieces. So I focus on the inner you, so you can be well, so you can live your dreams and be fulfilled, so that you're not repeating these bad habits and having this unhealthy life, because you're just you're in pain, and we're like, we need to be pain free. So yeah, I really help people, like, step jump into their greatness.
Oh, I think that's beautiful. I'm going to ask you again to tell people about your book and where people can find you. And I just want to say, I know full well that my cancer was resentment.
Hmm.
We need to take care of us, especially as moms.
Yes.
You. So, Annabelle, tell them about your book again and where they can find you, and then we'll be off.
That's so powerful. Yeah, people can go to stepstepjump.com.
Yeah.
You can buy my book there. You can listen to a chapter. I have one, chapter 3, the September fall, there for everyone. And you can sign up for the wellness journey if you want a deeper dive. And I also have a journal just for free, just as a gift, if you want to, journal and go work through your emotions and through the human triad, as I call it. And it's all there for you. I'm looking forward to seeing you all again.
Yes, absolutely. And you know what? I forgot, and I can still do this. Is our number here is 800-930-2819. If you want to call in, leave a message with our wonderful producer, Malia. She will get your information to Annabelle. She will give away one free session. to whoever calls in first.
Yay. I look
Yeah.
forward to it.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Annabelle. I'm so grateful that you were here. And this has been a fabulous show. And this is the first time I've actually talked to somebody who has been through this, this particular story. So I thank you so much for being here. And thank you, everyone, for being here along with us. And we'll see you next Friday. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to Transformation with Martine. Did listening today spark a sense of hope and possibility? Hold on to this feeling and tune in every second and fourth Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific for more inspiring conversations with Martine and her guests. They will show you there is hope, and you are right where you need to be. Martine is dedicated to supporting you right where you are while launching you towards promise, passion, and possibility that leads to the fulfilled life your heart aches for. If you're tired of being stuck, schedule a complimentary consultation with Martine and get on the exciting path towards the life you want to be living. Visit martineemmons.com and make your appointment today.